can be gained and how we can really move forward and strengthen the industry of urban management and really improve public spaces. So obviously, it's a very jam-packed agenda. So I just wanted to go ahead and just send obviously apologies for Angela Rivers, Michaela Donaldson, Stephen Dupria, and then Moses from the firm will be late, and Rogero from Q will be late as well. So with that, I just wanted to float the minutes from our last session very quickly, just for confirming emails, and then we'll go into today's agenda. And yeah, looking forward to the session, and thank you all for making time. Katie, are you able to float the minutes from last time? And then obviously for bandwidth, I will switch off my camera. Okay, so as always, first and foremost, please check your emails to see if everything is corresponding to your organization. And then also, if there's something of note that you want to note, just check the minutes. And at the end of the session, we'll have an opportunity to discuss anything you'd like to discuss. Okay. Those who are joining for the first time, obviously last session was focused on sustainability in the Bertram's area. So we looked at Makers Valley Partnership and Water for the Future and all the great work that they're doing there. So if you would like to just after this meeting go watch those presentations, please refer to our links in the chat to go to our website and look at the presentations. Okay, thanks for that, Katie. I would like one or two thumbs up just to approve the minutes. Okay, Katie, may you please float today's agenda?
Are you seeing the agenda, Katlego?
Yes, I am seeing it. Thank you, thank you.
Okay,
So,
cool.
this is really how we are going to try and approach this. So, at the first things first, I'm going to just outline the intention for this session, and then we will go into, in a sense, our host municipality's presentation outline of just the experience with the SRA in the city of Johannesburg. And then we'll move to Bernard's team at Tshwane. And then we're going to just get the Mbombela experience from James. And then we'll go into Cape Town with Mr. Yupi. I see he's in the meeting. And then after that, we'll just have a dialogue with all the very important people that we have in our meeting today from, various groupings, mainly Treasury, Salga, and the Land Value Capture Program and CSP representatives, which is the City Support Program. So it's just an idea of just to say, this is us as the City Improvement District representatives nationally. We are on board and this is our experience. And then obviously this would allow Treasury and the other national organizations in this meeting to be able to understand more in detail what we are speaking about when we are saying we need to partner better. So thanks for that, Katie. Let me just float my opening remark presentation. So it's just 10 slides just to really frame everything we are going to go into in this meeting. Katie, just please confirm if the slides are visible on your side.
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so when I was setting this session up, it was essentially just to say, with the energy from the presidential working groups, how do we now use that energy to come up with more sustainable solutions for partnerships, for spatial regeneration, and for ways to inclusively transform space, which is obviously a passion of mine as a town planner. So really, it was to say, okay, let's just frame a pathway towards a national legislation that allows for better partnerships. So, slides. Okay. So this is just the background for context to say, obviously, the City Improvement District is not really, it's not unique to South Africa. It's not unique to Gauteng. It's obviously a concept that was created in the 1970s, and really there's over 2,000 CIDs. And the main driving force is obviously it's a private sector led mechanism that accounts for the needs of property owners who then collectively decide to fund supplementary services for their area, which obviously takes the shape of cleaning, greening, and marketing and other social supports when the budget allows. And it's really just to dovetail the services that are provided by the municipality in a supplementary and complementary basis, not to replace those services. So really, the basics for each model is there needs to be a 50% plus one vote for the model, and there needs to be some type of legislative bylaw so that they can follow, and there needs to be a very clear, transparent levy collection, and also that these services need to be supplementary, not to replace the municipality. And then this is just to frame it that, there are other groupings that are attempting this model in Africa, mainly in Nairobi and Kigali. And, just to name a few to say it's being explored on a continental level as well. But I would say, of course, as a South Africa, I have the strongest groupings in our country. So really, the overarching legislations that exist right now are the Municipal Systems Act and Municipal Property Rates Act, and then obviously they are enabled by the Municipal Finance Management Act. And these obviously they enable the city improvement district, and various provinces really align with different with either one of them. It all depends on what the municipality is comfortable with, and also what the management initiative is comfortable with in terms of enabling legislation. Obviously, the formalized SRAs are only existent in Bombela, Riverside, and then obviously you have your IMSDs, internal municipal service districts in Tane, and then your urban improvement precincts in eThekwini. So obviously the various presenters will go in depth in terms of how these legislative frameworks allow them to be operational in their areas. So really the main event that resulted in the city improvement district becoming voluntary was when obviously there was a case in Randburg, for those who are familiar, but for those who aren't familiar, essentially the Supreme Court was questioning if the amounts that are being collected from property owners are a levy or an additional property rate. Because obviously an additional property rate, the collection needs to be done by the municipality. So as a result, what happened now is all the city improvement districts were asked to become voluntary. And with this change, it really removed the binding nature of the city improvement district, and has resulted in a lot of freeloading in terms of property owners who aren't contributing to the city improvement district being able to access the services from the city improvement district. So now it's resulted in city improvement districts focused mainly now on clean and safe, not having enough budget for other things like your placemaking and social support, but obviously some do and some don't. So It's just made it difficult to sustain the financial pool. So going into Gauteng, right now, obviously, Gauteng, all the initiatives are voluntary. Um, and then I would say metropolitan that's doing the best with the implementation of the SRA/IMSD obviously is Hatfield, and they will obviously tell you themselves. But they are all operating under that umbrella of being voluntary initiatives. So why are we here? So really, as the picture illustrates, it's to put our hands together and to say, how do we now, speak to your treasury, speak to your SALGA, your city support programs, and just to say, um, how do we work together to get cleaner, safer, more vibrant spaces, to empower communities, to create local economic development, and to just have more accountability and partnership. So really the aim of today is to say we just want to compare experiences to say how have you found implementing this in your area? Understand how it worked and explore how to nationalize this. We're not saying we want to have one legislation for the entire country. We're saying we want a flexible framework to say each municipality can decide if they want to go the Municipal Systems Act route or the Municipal Property Rates Act route. So, not to force anyone into any bylaw, but to say, how do we build something that allows for municipalities to choose, but also enables them in whatever they choose? And then, yeah, really, from a GPMA perspective, the idea is to professionalize the sector better. So it's to say, how do we now, as an industry, develop into an industry where there's accreditation, there's short courses, and just a new talent pool always coming into the industry for whenever these initiatives are established. There's someone who's competent to do the job, but also for your resident association, community associations to say, here's a channel for training so that you as a community can know what to do. And then also, we are ideally in the process of building a dashboard that will at least illustrate spatially where all these city improvement districts are and like a brief profile. So that's something we're also building as well. And then, as I've illustrated in this session, it's to improve our alignment with the municipality that'll allow for ratepayers and service providers to feel better represented, uh, and also just be able to see the results of their rates that are being paid. So yeah, this is a word that's been used since the CBD revitalization to say how do we now break the silos. So this session for the city improvement district, urban management, public space management industry is to say let's break our silos and let's have our national dialogue. Hopefully we can have these every 6 months or once a year just to say how far are we and how's the industry looking, and really just to say how do we sustain well managed public spaces for the next generation. So, as the slide says, I look forward to facilitating the rest of this conversation. And again, thank you for attending. And yeah, with that, I will stop flighting my presentation. Okay, so still doing good on time. So, I will just go straight into the presentations just for time. I see there is a few people from the COJ team, so I'm not sure who's tasked with just floating their comments for this presentation. I'm assuming it's you, Mpo, but I could be wrong. So I'm just going to say for the City of Johannesburg team, the floor is yours.
Good morning, colleagues. I hope that I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yes, so I have to tender an apology for Ms. Mpoentle Choche, who is our unit head. She's unable to attend the meeting, but I am here with my colleague Mpo, and I suppose Sepati is also in the meeting. I've also extended the invitation to our group finance colleagues who have a lot to do with the SRA. So I'm hoping that they do attend the meeting as we go. My name is Khositi Lemitsui. I'm from the Special Projects Unit. Um, I'm very happy, Chair, that you gave a background to the city improvement districts and the SRA. Because my presentation just dives into it. Sorry, I'm just gonna put it on to, yeah. I also have to appreciate that you uh, gave a very a good scene for us as the city of Joburg. Um, Also, you did mention that, the city improvement districts and SRAs is not unique to Gauteng or South Africa. In fact, as the city of Joburg, we base our model on the Cape Town model. We, in fact, took an excursion to Cape Town. A few of our colleagues from the city of Joburg took an excursion to Cape Town just to see how they do things in terms of the SRA, that side. And they have learned that obviously the city of Cape Town is far ahead in terms of how they do things institutionally. They do have a standalone department that is responsible for the day-to-day management of the SRAs, which we do not have in the city of Joburg. They also learned that the city of Cape Town allocates a budget, meaning that they pay their city improvement districts or SRAs upfront and then collect afterwards, which is something that we do not do in terms of the city of Joburg. So what we have done, since we are in the process of implementing the SRA, so we haven't implemented it yet. So what we have decided to do, since we do not have a standalone department that will be responsible for the SRA, a decision was taken that we establish a committee that will comprise of officials from different departments within the city, from your group finance to your group legal, your development planning, the CRAM departments, the municipal entities, you name it. And they will be responsible for the management of the SRA in terms of assessing those business plans towards approval and managing that relationship between the city and the SRAs. And obviously, that committee will decide on the frequency that they set to do those processes. So this is just the difference institutionally between us and the city of Cape Town. So because we do not have that standalone department like Cape Town does, we obviously needed a lead department that would be able to house the special rating areas. So it was decided that as a temporary measure, the whose office, in this case, the Special Projects Unit, which is where I'm from, will be the lead department for the SRA, but this will just be as a temporary measure just until a more suitable or a more fully functional structure is established. So I just thought I should just highlight some key principles in terms of how we do things in terms of the SRA, which is different from what the other SRAs might be done in other cities. So in terms of the city of Joburg, we are advised a lot by group finance because this is more of a finance competency. So they advise that we require 100% payment level for the recommendation of a special rating areas. So this just means that for those areas that wish to establish an SRA, their accounts must be up to date, meaning that there should be no owing to the city. So we do know that this is a contentious issue. In our consultations with yourselves, Katleho, we appreciate that this is a contentious issue, but with the reasoning of group finance, is that the city currently has a problem of collection. So it would be a good idea for us to also use the SRA to improve the level of collection in the city. So also we were advised by group finance that we must first collect the special rating area levy and then do the payment afterwards, which is what I believe is different from how Cape Town does it. They pay up front and then collect afterwards. So we will then collect and then do the payment afterwards, based on what I've said earlier, that we do have a problem of collection as the city. We are not where we want to be in terms of the level of collections. So we also decided that the Cs or the SRAs themselves will determine the suitable rate that they want to pay towards the SRA, obviously based on their level of affordability or the objective of the SRA, what they wish to do within their areas. So that will be the responsibility of the SRAs to determine their own contribution. So also another contentious one is the frequency of the payment towards the seats. Group finance advised us here also that we will be able to pay back to the seats every month, every 3 months, every 3 months or quarterly, based on their processes as group finance. So we won't be able to do, I suppose, what is preferable to the seats or SRAs, which would be on a monthly basis. So that is just another one that we have decided on. So very important for us to be able to get where we want to be with the SRA is to reconfigure the subsystem, just to make allowance for those collection of the special levy from the different seeds and communities. So we were advised by our group information and communication technology department that they want this process to be a digitized process and not a manual process. So they are working on a system that will tie in with the subsystem just to make this process digitized. So that is currently underway. So we want to pilot 2 city improvement districts or SRAs, one being in Q and the other one in Bramfontein. So what we have done as an exercise is just for us to get a sense of the payment levels within the different SRAs or the potential SRAs, was to collect information on their accounts. And important also to note that these areas also have different characteristics. In terms of their composition, they are a mixture of business and residential. So what we have realized is that all these seeds or potential SRAs are in areas in terms of their accounts. So that's another challenge that we are facing, because we, as I have explained earlier, that we do want accounts to be up to date for us to be able to enter into that agreement with the SRAs. So we have identified some risks with regards to the SRA. Number one is that we want the SRA to be inclusionary, or at least the concept of it, to say that also for those areas or communities that do not feel like the SRA is something that they want to do. We need to find out other models for us to be able to cater for them as well, so that they can be able to take care of their communities, much like the CIDs are doing. So we are not saying that the SRA should be the be all and end all. So we want to also explore those models so that other communities can be able to do something similar. We are also saying that departments and entities should not abdicate from their responsibilities. Like you have explained, Chairperson, that the SRA is their mandate, is to provide top-up services. So ours is to do the bare minimum and to do what we are mandated to do as municipalities, to provide those services. So we are saying that whilst the SRAs are providing those top-up services, we should also do our responsibilities and continue to do the work that we do in all communities. If we are mandated, or if JRA is supposed to do 3 shifts in a particular environment, when an SRA comes, they shouldn't say that we are doing less. They should always keep up the standard in terms of what they do. So another one of our challenge is obviously that we do not have a formal structure of the SRA in the city. So this has posed a lot of problems for us. Hence, we have come across a lot of delays in implementing the SRA because we do not have a formal structure. So we are saying that we ideally require a formal structure that will be responsible for the day-to-day management of the SRA. So yes, the brief was to keep it very short. So this is my 5-slide presentation, and I thank the colleagues.
Thanks for that, Josi. Yes, very perfectly timed presentation. Thank you for that. Just to save time, I'm gonna just go from Johannesburg to Tshwane. I see, Mr. Bernard, you have your whole team in the meeting. Thank you all for coming from the city or the office of the city manager. So they're just gonna run us down how they are doing things in the north. Mr. Bernard, the floor is yours.
Chair, thank you. It will be myself and Lodi Venter that will be presenting. I will do just an introduction, and then Lodi will take the colleagues through the detail. And just based on what our friends in Johannesburg presented, maybe as an introduction to Tshwane, we have in our city 3 options that communities can become involved in the urban environment and assisting the city in maintaining and securing infrastructure. So the first one is, and I'm not going to go into the detail because all the colleagues in this meeting are affair with all the legislation and options, but just to state what we have in our city is we have the CID in accordance with the Provincial Act, and that is still relevant in our city. You reflected the Randburg court case. Now, our team considered that court case, and as we followed the due process in our city, where the SIDs that are functioning in our city went through and received council approval, So due process was followed and they are still intact. We also took note of the comment that one of the judges made in that court case, and studying it in detail, that this, when tested, the SIDs might be found unconstitutional. Now, such a court case has not happened, so therefore we still recognize our CIDs in accordance with the approved council report. But because of that, we also wrote a IMSD bylaw. Like Joburg, we studied Cape Town's example. But in our city, we decided, and our team consists of colleagues from legal and finance. And what we have in our city, just to reflect to the previous presentation, is that in our city, it was resolved that we also, as Joburg, are not going to establish a specific department with all the functionalities to manage IMSDs or SIDs, but that we have an office in the office of a city manager. That's where Lodi and myself report. So we're in the office of a city manager, and then we have a technical team consisting of legal, finance, and of course your region's operational colleagues that assist. So we have that technical team. That same technical team considered the special rating areas used in Cape Town. In our city, we decided to use the sections 85 and 86 that allows internal municipal service districts. There's a lot of reasons for this. I don't want to bore colleagues with the detail, but the main reasons why we did not include the Special Rating Areas Act is, one, if one looks at the wording and intent, then special rating areas is project-based. If you look at the wording, it's got a beginning and an end, where urban managers continuous. So, and therefore we went for the internal municipal service district because it's a continuous action. Secondly, when we were writing the bylaw, we have SIDs in our city that have been collecting levies on their own for many years and has been doing such very successfully. So as the city have agreements with service delivery entities, private entities that assist the city in either upgrading water infrastructure or electricity networks or working on our building roads, we opted to have a same arrangement with people that would apply, so that they can, in our city, when they submit their report and business plan, they can indicate to us that they are going to collect levies themselves. In our instance, it is Hatfield is our example. Currently, we're busy with their application. So Hatfield runs as a SID, but they have had a director's decision, and it was tested and presented in their AGM. So we have their application to convert to an IMSD, and they have opted to continue to collect that levy themselves. So in our city, you then have the instance where you can indicate that you want council to collect, and then the things that Katlego or what the previous presenter indicated will play a role. In our instance, yes, finance will look at the current paying rate of that area, and for businesses, we have a 60% that you need to prove that 60% are in support. But when we speak to applicants, we said that we would rather prefer an 80 to 90% support for the same reasons as that Johannesburg has indicated. When you look at the affordability and the impact on the financial systems of the city, We also have an option for residential communities to submit an IMSD, but their support needs to be 75%. Similarly, so when they come and see, we have in our bylaw a whole process, and I don't want to bore the people with that, but we have a process that we set out and guide the people. And when they come, the first step is to come and see this office of a city manager. We will also then convince them to rather have their target 90 to 80%. Rather than the bylaw required 75%. So that's in essence the IMSD option. We also have a third option in our city. When writing the bylaw and engaging with key stakeholders in our city, we saw that there's a need for something else, something that allows community to become actively part of maintaining and taking ownership of their environment. And in our city, we found that people were already doing it, where they already were fixing potholes, maintaining their local park. We then wrote in light of the IMSD bylaw, we wrote a policy framework that allows community to become active role players like a CID, like an IMSD, in supporting the city in maintaining their local area. And that's a voluntary base. There's not, they don't need to show the amount of support they have. There is a short process, and my colleague will take you through that. But that allows communities on a very broad spectrum to support the city and to become responsible and take responsibility for their local area. So we have currently in the range of 160 applications. I think we've approved 110, and communities are currently fixing potholes, cleaning their local parks, changing globes in their streets, fixing the globes in their streets. We have in the inner city, our inner city, we have a CUP, that voluntary thing, we call it the Community Upliftment Precinct. We have business people that have decided to start with a CUP, and we have approved one for our central CBD. They, by example and by evidence, they've submitted first a CUP application, to use the evidence based of the improvement and the successes to draw in other role players, and then end up with an IMSD application. We have that same principle in other areas. But as an introduction, Chair, that is the three options in our city. I will ask Ludi just to flag quickly some of the principles which this is based on.
Okay. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. We have a presentation on this side. May I please share my screen?
Please do.
Thank you very much. Okay, kom net hierso. Sorry, I just want to make all the technical stuff correct. Awesome. Chair, I'm going to be very briefly about the IMSD. Our processes aligns with the majority of the steps, what Joburg and I believe Cape Town and the other cities also are doing, and we'll spend much more time maybe on the CUP process. Just want to highlight on this slide what Bernard already indicated there. 60% support for business and 75, my apologies, for residential areas. And the rest processes you're all familiar with. I'm not going to bore you with those details. Funding as well. as explained, we have a council collection or an agency agreement, and then the normal stuff. Failure to comply, the council debt collection processes will be applicable. And by the way, levy is calculated as a percentage of the property tax to a maximum of 25% of the property tax. You are all familiar with this. It's an addition. We don't replace. And we owe, currently, there was a problem with the subsystem that I believe has been resolved. And then, as Bernard explained, and I want to spend more time on this one, the community upliftment precinct policy. And this is purely based among goodwill of communities, and that's across all the city, from to the northwest, and it's not only limited to a specific area. And it's majority, the central aim of this is more on residential as resident associations. However, in industries, Roslyn and Pretoria West, some of in the industrial areas also use this process because it's much more flexible and adaptable to their needs. The purpose of this is to assist the city by way of a formal agreement to improve their infrastructure. Now, that formal agreement goes through an evaluation process and is eventually being signed and approved by the city manager for 3 years. At the end of that 3 years, it can be extended for another 3 years. Now, typical what applications, initiatives that we receive are those listed there. The majority of those at present is the replacement of streetlight globes. And simple reason for that is this, across the city, we live in a dark city. Pretoria is dark at night, and people are willing to assist and bring a light up their areas. The intention of this whole framework is to protect council and community interest. It's voluntary. That implies that communities are responsible for their own financial administration. We don't touch their money. They decide how much they collect, what they do with this. We will later in the year maybe implement a requirement that they have to, there has to be an annual general meeting. And at that meeting, the communities and residents has to report to themselves on their progress. It's a very easy process. There are no application fees. And I stated again, it's not exclusive to the wealthy areas. The application is very simple. We receive an application, arrange a meeting that is online, inviting the councillor, the applicant, as well as the relevant service delivery departments. At that meeting, we discuss the technicals, what they want to do, and it's a sort of a cross-communication between the region, advise, sometimes inform the applicant on the spot there that what they are doing is not allowed, and then the applicants informed that they cannot proceed with their application. Following this, we arrange a monthly evaluation meeting that's been chaired by our divisional head. And the result of that is, once the application is approved, we submit or draft legal documents that's been forwarded to the city manager for signature. And we try to facilitate this whole process within a month. Sometimes we exceed to about 6 months, depending on the response from the regions. But our aim is about a 30-day application process. Now, the reason why it happens is this, what you see there. That's the current reality in streets. And people just reach a point where they say, we're not willing to tolerate this anymore. I can make a difference by helping the city to clean it and to fix up those areas. This is one area where people step in, and that's in the Moot area, Valeria, very Waverley, Rietfontein, those of you familiar with the city, people painted those bridges, also maintained the park and the playing equipment. This is very simple stuff, but this is the things, actions that make people want to use those parks and coming back to that areas. In the mainland node, there's a thing as CID, They call themselves CID, although they operate as a CUP at present. And they assist with various tasks, from putting out fires, cleaning, maintaining the electrical substations, as well as the normal sidewalk cutting and upliftment. In Pretoria North, this is an interesting case study. This application was initiated by an estate agent. We realized that the area reached a point where it's difficult to sell homes. And he, out of his own, decided he employed those people out of his own back pocket to clean up the area. And eventually, when the CUP was formally approved by council, he was one of our first applicants. And Pretoria North, they invited at the bottom, held a meeting with motivated the school, one of the schools, to use their children also to clean around the area. And Chair, that is about the end of my story. Let me just stop it here.
For that, Lodi and Bernard, I know there's a million questions, but can we soldier on to Mbombela with James and Siobhan? And then I would say let's just have the discussion at the end of the presentation. So James and Siobhan, I'm sure. Okay, there's the big man. How are you doing, James?
Yeah,
The floor is yours.
good, thank you. I need to change my camera because you've got a side profile. But let me just, there we go, just can everybody share the presentation? Just bear with me.
Yeah, it's visible on my side.
Yeah. All right. Taking a while at coming up. There we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. And yep, thanks for the invite to share our experience in Mbombela. So Siobhan and myself have put this presentation together and really just give a quick overview of the Mbombela CIDs, talk a little bit about their legal framework and enabling policies, yeah, and a few concluding thoughts. If we look at Mbombela, you'll see there's the CBD on the right sort of that map, and it's got there's a CID in the CBD, and then there's the Riverside node, which is to the north of the CBD, which is a big mixed-use node, and there are two CIDs that basically are in the Riverside node, the Riverside Industrial Park. They, for all intents and purposes, are managed as a sort of centrally managed, similar to the sort of Sandton model. So there are effectively three CIDs in Mbombela, one in the CBD and two in this node just to the north of the CBD. Riverside Park, it was CID was established in 2004, operationalized in 2009. It's been a very strong developmental node. So it was a greenfield development, and you'll see the phases which it's been developed over a period of basically 30 odd years. It's now a big area. It's over sort of 280 hectares in size. The industrial CID, just to the south of that, was established later in 2015. It's basically a light industrial park, quite homogeneous in terms of land use. Consists of 118 properties, 53 owners, with that municipal value. And then the Nelspruit CBD CID is really along one of the main kind of roads, streets in the CBD. That was established sort of 2 years after the CID bylaw was promulgated in 2002. Covers an area of 13 hectares, mixed use, mainly commercial. Consists of 67 properties and 55 owners, with a municipal value of 192 million. And there are plans to look at expanding this to encompass most of the CBD area. Yep, so that's sort of underway. we look at the legal framework and enabling policies, not too dissimilar to Tswani, what Bernard was kind of sharing their experience. We had a sort of specifically designed bylaw, not too dissimilar from the Gauteng CID Act, but not the same. And that was promulgated in 2000. The bylaw was specifically drawn up as enabling legislation for obviously the establishment and management of CIDs. The bylaw took its legal reference from the transitional local government legislation at the time, which has subsequently been repealed and absorbed into the municipal, most of which has been absorbed into the Municipal Systems Act. It has served the city and CIDs well for the past 20 years, but does need updating to ensure closer alignment with Section 85 of the Municipal Systems Act. And it's something that we're struggling to get the municipality to action, is the actual updating of the bylaw to get it more closely aligned with Section 85 of the Municipal Systems Act. And we kind of also favor that piece of legislation as the enabling legislation for CIDs in Bombela. The part of the establishment or the approval that council gives is also that the city needs to enter into a service level agreement, including an authorization agreement, which gets signed between the CID and the municipality, and that gets renewed every 3 years. SLA basically sets out each party's responsibilities in terms of service provision. The authorization agreement cedes the right to the CIDs to collect CID levies on behalf of the municipality. And the CIDs work very closely with the Department of City Planning and Development, which is their sort of conduit or sort of center point in the municipality that sort of has an oversight role with and kind of relationship with the CIDs. In terms of enabling policies, in addition to the CID bylaw, the city is also an enabling policy in their rates policy and bylaw in the form of a rate rebate, which is equivalent to 10% of the property taxes to all properties within an approved CID that has been established in terms of the bylaw. So basically, the rebate, is in recognition of the work and investment that CIDs direct into the public space. It's also an incentive for property owners to pay their rates, as the contribution is only paid on accounts that are up to date. So a bit of a self-enforcing policy to make sure that property owners pay their accounts to be able to get the rebate. And the city, has been very supportive and active in the CIDs in Bombela until recently, due to sort of financial and capacity constraints. As a result, they are fallen behind in their contributions in terms of specifically the rate rebates due to the CIDs, but are still paying them and struggling to proceed with the bylaw review, which we are engaging with them on. That's basically it, Katlego, and we'll take questions afterwards, but that's a very short whistle-stop kind of overview of the Bombela CIDs. And we're not SRAs. SRAs, as you sort of mentioned in your opening address, but very much CIDs, aligned to, I suppose, the Systems Act. Thank you.
For that, James, I'm always so interested in the Bombela model. And I think you pre-framed the essential parts that I really wanted to touch on. Thank you very much for that. And then let's just go to the colleagues from Cape Town. I see Tasso and Yupi are in the meeting. So I will just hand over to them. So Tasso manages, he's the CEO of City of Cape Town, CID, City Central. And then obviously Yupi would represent the municipality. So over to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Okay, let me just quickly share this. I've got a very long presentation, but I'm gonna skip through all the normal stuff and just get to the juicy stuff. Just tell me if you can see my presentation.
I can see it, and you have 30 minutes. So
okay, now I'm gonna go. I'm used to being quick.
No problem.
Okay, so just some background in terms of our model. Everything started in the 90s when our CBD was going down the drain. And then 99, the business community came together with the city as well as the provincial government to try and turn it around, creating the first model for Cape Town, which led to the establishment of the CCID. Now, this is specifically in black and white, just to show how it looked. I mean, some of these scenes might be familiar to you guys as well. And that's where we came from. Our CBD was absolutely in chaos and capital was fleeing. This is Cape Town now. I just had to throw in these photos just to show you where we're currently sitting. Very proud of where we are. Vibrant. So just looking at Cape Town currently, we've got 55 established SITs, and we've got 30 plus communities that are at various stages of trying to establish a SIT. And that 30 changes, I mean, it was at some point up to 50. So, and there's just the composition in terms of how it's made up, which is always interesting reading to see that it's not just limited to commercial or industrial. We've got a lot of, at this point, most of our applications are actually from the residential side. That you're very familiar with. That's basically the key of what CIT is about. And the most important for me is always about not replacing city services, and that the city must deliver at the same standard as previous. Because the big thing is, if the city don't deliver, then you can have as many cities as you want to, but they will not make an impact and not unlock the areas the way you want it. So the key is for the city to do what it's supposed to do. In terms of the CID, so we've got 4 focus areas in terms of public safety, combating crime. Then we're looking at environmental, because environmental is very important for us. The city is under attack from the polyphagous shuttle borer beetles. So all CIDs are very familiar in terms of how to combat and identify that. And then we're looking at social responsibility. Every CID has got a social element to it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't help you just fight crime and grime. There's all kinds of other elements that actually contribute to it. And then the urban maintenance side, very important. Doing the small things, that's what CIDs are good at. City is good at doing the big things. We can replace the big water pipes, but when it comes to painting a curbstone, then we fail on that. And then just on the urban maintenance side, just to see how a median looked previously, and this is what it looks like now, allowing CIDs to flourish. And for us, obviously, we will not do anything if there's no benefit to us. And the big thing for us, it's about the alternative funding solution for urban management, because we don't have the money to do everything. So everything is done at the cost of the property owners, which holds degeneration of distressed areas, promote economic growth. I mean, you're very familiar with all of these benefits. But the big thing is it extends the city's integrated development plan into communities and allow the city to use its resources more optimally to ensure better value for money. And the big thing for us, it protects our rights base. Because if our rights is not collected, then the city starts to having financial problems. And this is just another example. This was in the one industrial area in Elsies River. This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks afterwards. And at the point that it was done, it cost us CID, I think, around about 15,000 Rand to make this difference. And why we are inundated with requests for a CID, because number one thing, especially in residential areas, everybody contributes, except those that receive a rates rebate. CIDs have got control over their own money, spend in terms of their business plan, appoint their own service provider, sets their own standards, full community participation to get it established as well as afterwards. You've got enhanced municipal services. There's a guaranteed monthly payment by the city all the areas belong to the city. So all they have to focus on is delivering the services. And then fully supported by the city, by a political observer on their CID boards, as well as from the officials. And obviously not a unlimited lifespan. They have to apply for an extension of their term, or they can dissolve at any other time. Just another photo. Okay, I'm going to skip past that. In terms of our model, so it is based on Section 22 of the Property Rights Act. So from our side, we felt that the Property Rights Act is much more open-ended, because it only refers to improve and upgrade, which can be interpreted in any way. So we've backed that up by a bylaw and a policy. Our bylaw, we previously up to 2016, from 2012 to 16, SRA bylaw. And then after what happened in Joburg, we went through a full review process, because obviously we were also concerned about the constitutionality issue, like as Tshwane mentioned. And from there, we've now got a new bylaw and policy, and we now back with CID. So from a political point of view, they said that when you talk about special rating areas, it's too negative, because it just tells people they're going to pay additional rates. Where city improvement districts are more positive. So although all our CIDs are special rating areas, from a policy and bylaw perspective, we've qualified that we call them city improvement districts. And to get established, we don't go with a 100% collection rate, because we've seen that that's basically impossible. You do have some outliers, but most of the time it's between 95 and 100. And we look at a 12-month moving average when we do the calculation. And then for the areas that are below the 95, we don't stop the process. We just halt it and then get our debt management to actually focus on those property owners that are not paying, just to make sure they learn the good habit of paying what they receive. And then we do a recalculation of the collection rate. And with the establishment, every property has got one vote. But those property owners that receives a rates rebate, they are exempt from the process, as well as city properties. I mean, we can't give everything for free or pay for something that we give for free. And then in terms of the requirement to lodge an application, for our residential, we don't do the 75, we do the 60%, because we found to get 60% buy-in, you need at least 95% rate of engagement. And then your non-residential is 50% plus one. And then after the city is established, the management body must be a non-profit company. Only additional ratepayers can be members. We've got a prescribed generic memorandum of incorporation. Board of the directors must all be property owners. They adopt a code of conduct. They've got quarterly board meetings. They have to sign a declaration of interest, a POPI Act declaration, annual general meetings where the quorum is set at 10%. And our oversight is imperative, because from all our legal opinions, senior legal counsel always stated that the city is not just a conduit to collect and disperse money. We have got a legal obligation to ensure that the additional rates are used for the appropriate and intended purpose. So because it's used public money from the city side, we've got a responsibility to uphold transparency, accessibility, and good governance. So, and on the CID boards, as I said, there's a political observer that's appointed by the mayor that attends board meetings. So our CID branch, we oversee the fiscal and corporate governance. We establish CIDs, we extend terms, we expand boundaries, and we initially, as with all of you, it started as one person, I think it was in economic development, and the other side, one person in revenue, and then at some point coming together, then we were in budgets, part of broader functions, not just CIDs. CIDs was always just one of the functions that was performed. And then from about 2000 and just quickly think 16, we started to focus on SID specific because it was just becoming too big. I mean, with I think just looking at the SID budgets as going, that's for 25, 26, we're going to collect 481 million. So it's the city's role is becoming bigger and bigger. And then the service departments, yes, they have to oversee the enhanced and supplementary services. And then the SID annual reports go to the AGMs, and it's also submitted to sub-councils. You don't have sub-councils. And then from our side, if things go wrong, because we've seen that we don't live in a perfect world, then we do request a forensic audit. And if it goes further, then we also support the SAPs or Hawks, no matter where it goes. So if it goes wrong, we've got an obligation. And then from our side, the council approve annual budgets and additional rates as part of our normal budget approval process. We approve business plan, terms extensions, boundary expansions, you name it. And then coming back to the funding model. Okay. So the community fund the establishment process, but if they are successful, then that money can be recovered in the first year budget of the SID. We do pay monthly on budgets in terms of an agreement. So we pay 97% and we retain 3% as a rolling bad debt provision, which we review every year after our audit. And then where we've got an over provision, then we refund qualifying SIDs. And yes, it's the MPRA that we use. So, and when we establish, just to make sure we don't bill property owners out of their homes, we make sure that the additional rate is not more than 25% of the applicable rates rate. And when the city is established, we conclude a finance agreement which spells out all the roles and responsibilities. And there's monthly financial reporting to the city, audited financial statements, annual reports in terms of performance. And then I'm sure you're very familiar with this, because everybody, when they approach me, they think that SIDs will be the answer to all their problems, where sometimes you actually need the army and not a SID. And yes, that is one of the problems with the model, is obviously that we can only implement it in areas where rates are levied. And that in terms of looking at poorer areas, because we've looked at that models, at various models, and at the end of the day, it always comes back to sustainability. Because as soon as the city is contributing to then the sustainability becomes an issue. But I like what Swane is doing in terms of allowing communities to do things. I'm sure that agreement that you have for the communities will actually cover the liability, because we also allow SIDs to do more and not just supplementary services, but then there's an agreement in place to protect the SIDs as well as the city. And then high arrears, yes, that can delay the process. And then another problem in terms of line departments abdicating the responsibilities, but there I must say SIDs do keep them accountable and shout very loud when the city departments are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then residential SIDs, yes, they are challenging in terms of making sure they remain affordable, sustainable, gentrification, dividing the community. And then when it's approved, then obviously everybody must pay. And then the legal framework also, we come from the Property Rights Act, bylaw, policy, finance agreement, System Act, Constitution, all of the nice stuff that you're all familiar with. And then all kinds of successes that we do have through our model, not just looking at crime and grime, but we also have some other innovative stuff, like in Swanswyk, where they constructed the baboon fence, because we do have baboons in Cape Town. And then just for Tassa will know about this, in terms of where Cape Town Central was, I mean, it's a small 1.6 square kilometer area. 2006, we had a 5 billion property valuation, and 2024, 44 billion. So, and the collection rate for SIDS, we calculated end of May, it was sitting at 99.5. And that does improve the city's cash flow, because from our side, based on our model, the additional rates are part of the composite municipal bill. So we don't distinguish it or have a separate account or whatever. If you pay your municipal bill, it's part of that. And the way we work is, when you pay your bill, the oldest debt is always settled first. So therefore, if people don't want to pay for the SID or don't want to pay for rates, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the oldest debt is always settled. And then just some more photos, just to see how the SID's in action, filling potholes, just doing their thing. And that is my team. There's my executive director here in the middle, Rob McGaffin. I'm standing there right in the back. So now you know what I look like. And that's it. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure if Tessa would like to comment on, the relationship you have with each other.
How long do we have for that?
I mean,
thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I think I just want to stress what Yuppie went through in his presentation. I know many of you are familiar with the processes that you've been through, but I cannot stress how important that relationship with the city is. We all do, as operational people, as SID operatives, we all know the game. We all been on the streets. We all do what we can do. So we're all familiar with the daily grind of trying to repair, fix, beautify, protect our neighborhoods, our suburbs. But without the enabling policies and support from the city, I can't stress how important that relationship is. As much time that we may be frustrated with the city, with some of the officials that we work with, that's normal, everyday kind of stuff. The importance is the actual tangible relationship and the practical solutions that come out of that relationship across all departments. And I really mean that, across all departments, from your waste collection truck driver right up to the mayor. The access to those individuals, to those departments is paramount. Without that in place, life will be very, very difficult for us in Cape Town. So it's important to stress that relationship. And I think the importance also is how the CID model or the policy and bylaws are managed, and the positive contributions it provides to enable the SIDS 55 that Yuppie mentioned, and it's growing in leaps and bounds. The importance that adds to the stability to the organization, to enable us to focus on the operations and not having to worry about where our next rand is coming from. That for me is the make and break of the whole relationship. The ability to be able to pay your service providers, your staff, and to be able to save and plan for projects, plan for future projects, a year or 2 or 3 years down the line, knowing that you have a guaranteed income coming in on a monthly basis. That to me is fundamentally the most critical part of the operation of the model that we have in Cape Town. And I think from the finances side, we then expand on to the growing development within each department and how we can assist them to enable us for them to assist us. And that kind of two-way relationship, understanding what the city is going through, understanding how each department has to work, some of the challenges that they face, and us enabling how to, or finding out how can we help them make their life better. And in return, we get that support from them as well. Also very, very crucial to enable us to do what we do in Cape Town. Thanks, Katlego. I'm open to any questions if anybody wants to ask.
Thanks, Tesso. Yeah, very, very important points that you just made right there. Before we have a discussion, I just wanted to bring in Rorisang from SAPOA. Well, today he's got the SAPOA cap on. There was a national committee developed by SAPOA, the Precinct Management Committee, and this is just to make the people who don't know that there is a committee out there dedicated to obviously the professionalization of the industry. So Rorisang, maybe you can just speak about the perspective from SAPOA, and then yeah, we'll continue from.
Hi, Katlego, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. I suppose my presentation just almost gives a consolidation, but maybe from a property owner's perspective. So at the beginning of last year, there was a call put out by the South African Property Owners Association to really relook the National Working Committee. Sorry, there's somebody's mic on. So sorry about that. As I was saying, that there was a call put out by the South African Property Owners Association to then re-look at a Precinct National Working Committee to create a form of national legislation that could support and guide precinct management establishment across the country. So essentially, the committee then focused on two core action areas, which was legal and institutional frameworks, and then knowledge management and professionalization. And essentially, the aim of all this work is to then try find similarities amongst the different legislations that exist, or correlate all this body of work together to then find a way forward in how we can then make everything almost uniform whilst embracing all the different legislations, but ensuring that there is some form of continuity that everyone can then really adhere to. So with the South African Property Owners Association doing this working committee, it almost enabled us to then have a broader sense in terms of what is actually happening and what are people's thoughts with respect to precinct management currently across the country. So the Precinct Management Working Committee currently comprises of Umbombela, which is really well represented by James, the Western Cape by Tasso, Jean, KZN by Brian, and then Gauteng, myself. And we've really just been discussing and sharing what our experiences are and issuing out of surveys that were recently done to just really get a better understanding of what is it that is currently existing and how can we then use what is existing to then share across the different cities and regions. Again, this isn't to the aim of this working committee was to firstly understand what the issues were previously and how can we then create a uniform way in which we can all engage with one another, because I think in the end, the aim of the improvement district is to support property owners and their land values. And essentially, the work put into this committee was to firstly understand what precinct management is and how can we then leverage this work to support the operations of property owners. So one of the committees that I was heading up was with respect to knowledge training and professionalization. And I think in the end, what we are wanting to do in the long run is to find a way in which precinct management is a course which can be taught. But obviously there has to be a lot of work that is being put into it. So over and above the work that Katlego is doing with respect to WITS and UJ, we are in the process of trying to find or create coursework or more or less identify what currently precinct managers are doing across the country, whether it be in Johannesburg, KZN, Mbombela, and Cape Town, and understanding how is it that, precinct managers are working, because right now nobody is really taught what it means to be a precinct manager. I suppose the term "you're a jack of all trades but a master of nothing," because precinct managers are so diverse, from managing operations, running board meetings. So precinct managers do a lot, and essentially we are just trying to then build a level of coursework that will enable precinct managers to be recognized for the work that they do, and in the long run then have a certification that enables them to say that they are a qualified precinct manager. But over and above all this body of work that we've done, we are now in the process, and we are fortunate that SAPOA has a working document or MOU with the South African Council of Planners, which we intend to then use as a vehicle to then start at least providing the structure in terms of what professionalization looks like, from education to best practice, because with their support and structure, it also gives us a foot in the door with respect to national government and working committees to best advocate for precinct management work. But this wouldn't have been possible as well with respect to the survey that was issued out, and this is what James was really responsible in doing. The survey that was issued out went to about 19 precinct entities across 4 provinces, and of that, 87 precincts, of those 19 precinct entities, they all manage about 87 precincts, representing 14,744 properties. And in essence, the precincts that were surveyed had a total annual turnover of 225 million. So of that feedback, and what I was just reiterating, is that 84% support a national policy framework and 76% support a professionalization of the sector. Whilst that may be the case, I think there are more granular aspects that still need to be hatched out, because as it has been presented, a lot of the municipalities have different avenues to enact legislation, and we also need to respect that when creating this national policy framework, because in the end, we don't want to create something new that will supersede everything, but we want something that will then be able to support whatever is existing and make it implementable across the country. So by then doing so, we are trying to then grow interest in regional and national associations to strengthen coordination. I think in Gauteng, we are very fortunate to have the GPMA, and it is hoped that down the line, areas such as the Western Cape, KZN, and Mbombela may also have their own associations that represent their members and have that national dialogue. So in one instance, you may find, and what we are looking at now, is that whilst Gauteng has a working national committee, we now need to sort out our legislation, whereas the other municipalities that have their legislation need to have a member body to support their associations. So we are all in different positions, and that is something that needs to be reiterated and understood, because in the end, we just want to make sure that we can come to a point where we can all meet with one another and have a shared dialogue consistently with national government or our provincial or local government. So essentially, in the end, we still are meeting, but we are now in the process of maybe handing over our work. We do want to engage with SACPlan to see how they can then start supporting and providing us with the foundation with all the work and research that has been done to then start almost creating a body from a professionalization perspective, whilst we also are making sure that there is a level of consensus with regards to the national framework perspective. There is still engagement with higher education partners, and the idea is that in the end, we then engage with these entities to see who would then be able to offer the best level of education based on what our needs is, and then also then look at formalizing cooperation across precinct forums, ensuring that there's an alignment amongst industry, especially our service providers. Managing the public space is a different ball game all in all, and there also has to be some level of accreditation that is then given to service providers to ensure that they know how to manage the public space from a security guard, understanding what to look out and how then cleaning teams manage to clean or replace potholes or sidewalks based on municipal bylaws as per the municipality where the sit is. So in the end, we are just trying to work towards a sector-wide input into white paper on local government, especially on public-private collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Dori-san. You should definitely do radio or something. But yeah, thank you for that presentation in terms of SAPOA. And okay, now definitely on time. I just want us to have a discussion on the presentations and questions. But before just general questions, there's a few people I want to single out, right? So the first one, I think she knows this is coming. Mama Sibongile, I just wanted to hear your thoughts so far on, what you are observing, what you are learning. Yes, just, can you just come in and say a few words, you or Seth? Depends on who would like to say something from a treasury perspective.
Colleagues, good morning, and thank you, Katlego, for convening this session. I think it's quite a valuable session. I am Sibongile Mazibuko. I'm with the City Support Program in National Treasury. I think for me, this is quite a very, very critical piece of work that needs to be understood by all urban centers and needs to be really, really supported. I thought it was actually a good starting point for me because I'm attending this session for the first time to understand where each metro is and also Mbombela. But I also thought it was important maybe just for the city of Joburg to have shared with us what is existing at the moment with their seats besides the path they're taking in terms of rating areas. Lastly, I think it is quite important that we finalize or formulate a very clear path around if we need any legislative process, what would it be and which legislation are we targeting? If it's a bylaw process, how do we ensure that we have not necessarily standardized, but a clear path of what are the building blocks for which legislation? I heard there is quite a vast different approaches from the Municipal Systems Act to the Property Rating Act. Thus, it's actually quite important that we understand that path. I'm also excited about the fact that this is also nudging towards professionalizing this piece of urban support and a piece of community involvement work, which is very critical. I'm actually sitting here and thinking, why is it that cities don't use some of the available grant processes that are in the system? I was actually chatting to Seth on the side around the Presidential Employment Program, the community workers program, and none of them actually indicated that the cities support the seeds, even those that are community-based seeds that are not necessarily commercial-based, with those types of available grants. My last part is also to actually understand how else can we enhance this work, and I just did not hear what could be done to enhance it. I am thinking that there is varying levels of success. Cape Town, Tshwane, Mbombela, Joburg, showing us what they are actually dealing with and the success factors they're beginning to realize. But what else can we do to actually heighten that support? Chair, those are my few comments and my few thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Sibongile. I think really this is why I ended off with SAPOA. I think that's really where we can set up a session with you and your team and just discuss closer with the precinct management committee how to further enable the industry. And then I just want to also now allow Gary to just say a few words. Also someone who's working closely with Treasury.
Hi, Katlego, thank you. I haven't prepared anything, but I'll certainly tell you what we've been thinking about. So I'm a consultant mostly working with National Treasury through the City Support Program, with people like Sibongile, Seth, and others that are on the call, but also with the land value capture program that is run through the Development Action Group and sponsored by the Lincoln Land Institute and others. So you can hear already, and you can hear that we've got quite a sort of a more academic sort of policy view on this topic, and our perspective is really that as a land value. Globally, SRAs or SRA type structures are seen as a land value capture tool, and we're really trying to find out if there is an ability to use SRAs or similar structures to raise much needed infrastructure financing for cities who are clearly struggling with getting the funding to do all of the work that is necessary. And so we're sort of starting out, or certainly I am starting out on the sidelines of this to some extent, and just trying to understand how we can better use SRAs or similar structures to fund urban infrastructure. So that's kind of the perspective that I've got. And so we're doing this, with this kind of consortium of people, the City Support Program, the World Bank, and others. So that's all. I'm not sure if there's anything specific you'd like me to address, Katlego, but that's really where I'm coming at it from. And so all this is very interesting to understand how the policy and implementation parts of this all fit together. And some of the kind of the I want to call it stakeholder engagement and advocacy parts too, because I think there's something quite interesting here, but I don't think it is being fully utilized, I think, by the different cities, and we could probably do better. And so my interest here really is, what types of information can we make available to cities? For example, what is the impact of CIDs on collection rates? What is does it improve? Does it not improve? And it might act as an incentive for people like, say, Joburg to implement it more extensively, and perhaps seeing what types of capital formation these SRAs contribute to in cities overall. Those are the types of things that we're looking at, and if there are other ideas of ways that we can advocate better for the implementation and use of SRAs, I'd certainly be quite interested. But yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for, Katlego.
Definitely. Always a very succinct but very I am back. I thought I lost you all. Just for the last bit of comments, I know she's not prepared for anything, just to hear her perspective. Layla, do you want to say anything before I just open up for questions?
Thanks. Well, I think it's all been incredibly interesting. And as Spongile said, I think it's really worth starting to pull some of these things together as to what's been the most successful and what would be applicable in the different areas. What I think you're very aware that there's the Presidential Joint Working Group that's been set up for Joburg. And it's obviously there's a particular work stream that focuses directly on inner city and townships, and upgrading and revitalization of those areas. And I think everyone's very familiar with the state of Joburg's inner city. So the question of urban management is absolutely on the top of the agenda there. And Joburg is battling with the SRA implementation, but even outside of that, what they're facing is a declining investment and declining declining sustainability of existing businesses. And so the CIDs then become that cost that one cannot necessarily have to contribute. And so you just tend to get into the cycle. So, one of the big issues is to try and get those more sustainable and try ensure that you do have sufficient property owners coming together that can complement. So you don't end up having people falling away in areas where there's such high levels of decline. So obviously the CIDs at the moment, which I think are quite interesting. I mean, obviously they've continued. A lot of them have been there for a very long time. There's a very strong base in the commercial areas, but not necessarily in the rest of the areas. Although there has been steady increase in some of the residential areas where you have well-run buildings or you have enough anchors, if I can say, to sustain those. So I think there's something very interesting around the residential in high density areas and what the modelling is around that. Then, of course, there's also a lot of developers are going in to Joburg generally, but it was happening towards the kind of, probably from about 2015, 2016, especially with Jewel City and the ABSA Precinct, where you started having property owners or investors buying up a fairly large amount of properties in those areas and setting up their own urban management systems, kind of including that as part of the cost of development, given that it would retain value, et cetera, et cetera. So that's also something that I think is a very interesting model, also because they tend to be quite expansive. They kind of, sometimes it goes as far as providing some of your own services, or even if they are complementary services, but they are, it could be from water tanks to, upgrading infrastructure, etc. So those things that kind of model, I think, is an interesting one to maybe include and see how those are operating and how they can potentially be expanded. Then there's also issues that I think are interesting where you have these kind of parts of all inner cities or high density areas where you have very complicated and difficult management concerns or activities, which is often around issues of taxi management, informal trading, and then obviously in the case of inner city, and I think most of the inner cities are facing this as well, as the growth of bad buildings. So how does one, because that requires quite a lot of intensive focus and resource and capacity to deal with. And then lastly, I just want to raise the issue of how one starts looking at new models for lower income residential areas, particularly townships. What are the options there? And part of this presidential joint working group is starting to look at models that could be implemented in those areas. I really thought the CUP model that was presented by Tony was very, very interesting, and something that I think we'd really like to pursue further engagement on, because it's something that we can potentially apply in that instance. Thank you so much.
Problem, Leila. Thank you for that input. I'm seeing Vusi unmuted. Do you want to say something, Vusi? I think he unmuted himself accidentally. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to open up for Mr. Nava Pillay for the comments. Nava is with the Tshwane team.
No, good. Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to everybody. Firstly, it's my first time joining the committee or this meeting. I want to upfront make the suggestion that in dealing with urban decay and revitalization of communities, one of the mistakes we've done in the past as a country, we tried to straitjacket approaches. So we want to write it in a law, and we want to say this can be done, this can't be done. And what we found in the Tshwane context, that's not very helpful. Hence, we came up with the policy framework called Community Upliftment Precincts. Because all the issues that a CID brings about, the complexities and the onerous process to establish a CID and the contributions that poorer communities don't have. Our program, which is a first step towards ultimately a CID or an IMST, is to get poorer communities back into developing and improving the immediate environment. So a precinct could be a street, a precinct could be a park, a precinct could be infrastructure, upgrading. The reason why we went the route of primarily it being voluntary and that it is up to communities to want to take pride and want to take the lead in improving the immediate vicinity is to back down in a very real way, for lack of a better approach, the people shall govern. It's not about, the people shall govern is not about electing people. It's about communities taking charge of their own lives, where they participate and receive service, not as passive citizenry, but as active participation in the development of their own areas. So the CUP is a very significant movement, so much so that it is also revitalized old programs that were once there. For example, just to give you an example, we have the Heritage Program in Atteridgeville, run by the Pelly Heritage Foundation. They applied for a piece of land council owned. They developed it into a remembrance wall. It is now fully developed. They catered for by the community. People visit the site. Atteridgeville community members are remembered. People like Dr. Nkomo and others who come from that place are now memorialized. I see somebody is putting something
No,
up
please
here.
continue. Please, that was me. I just put it there for GPMA marketing. Sorry, but
Okay. So, and then we have, so we bring in poorer communities in the townships where people who live close to a park have now taken upon themselves to cut the grass, to beautify the park for the benefit of the community. Ward councillors are forced to get involved in this kind of activity because we are forcing ward councillors to take responsibility for what happens in their ward, in the sections of their ward. They must support it, they must sign it off. And we keep ward councillors responsible and various city departments responsible to make sure that whatever is done at the standard and quality that the city requires. This program has also moved because of the agility of this program, and it's not straight-jacketed. Companies like Checkers, ShopRite Checkers, have now entered into agreement with us, with the city, that to safeguard high primary, secondary substation that used to be vandalized, to put in security cameras, beams, whatever the case may be, at their cost. The 3 or 4 primary substations that we have approved in CAP, for the past 8 months, there's not been one single outage or vandalism. So what I'm saying to colleagues here, each city must begin to understand its own environment, must draft policies to suit its environment, and obviously it changes. And that policy must have the ability to be agile enough to allow communities to fix up the problems that government has failed in. Setting up a CID, as Cape Town has said, is not the panacea to all our problems. It is one vehicle. We need to look at different vehicles. We need to ingrain in whatever we do the concept of the people shall govern and the people will take responsibility to hold elected representatives responsible and accountable. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nava. And I see why Salome really wanted you to join the session. Very valuable inputs, mainly, the people shall govern. But I like the word you use. We need agile policy. I think that's really something that we need to, when we do the working group, just to consider that, to say we need agile policy that's not there to straitjacket the issue, but solve it collaboratively. Thank you for that input. I would be remiss to not just give Anne a minute or two just to say something. So I know I'm putting you on the spot, but Anne, do you want to say something?
No, you are pushing me on the spot, and I can't really add anything excepting to say that this is the most wonderful conversation and dialogue. I hope it continues. It has a very broad base of interests and people who are seriously interested in finding solutions that enable communities to partner with the state in the management of their place. So I hope this dialogue continues. I'm very grateful that everybody found time to join it. And if ever I can be helpful in the dialogue, I'm very happy to be involved. Well done. Thank you.
Anne? Yeah, I'm just going to open up the floor for questions. I just want to take hands. But while that is happening, I definitely know Andrew wants to say something as well. So I'm just going to give you the opportunity. Andrew, do you want to say anything?
Thanks, Kajetel. I don't know how you knew. Look, I think what we've heard today has been absolutely fascinating and very, very positive. And I think the sort of progress being made around the education professionalism, and I know this has been a long-standing push from Anne's side. It's great to see the progress being made there. But what I found interesting is the way the different areas are approaching this. And I think when we look at that national policy, it's got to be a framework within which all the shoes can fit. And I think that's going to be a very interesting process that needs to be investigated very carefully. You don't want to shut down possibilities and opportunities and innovation, but give the opportunity for these sort of things to develop further. It's such an evolving and dynamic area. And it's fantastic to see how private sector and state are coming together and are working together. So congratulations to everybody on the ground on some fantastic work that's being done. And thanks very much.
Thanks for that, Andrew. I just wanted to remind whoever hasn't sent me their presentations, please do share them with me so I can just upload them for our network. I just wanted to address a few questions that have been in the chat box. I see, okay, Leila asked for the City of Tshwane bylaws and policies, so I will share that with you. And then UP asked the Tshwane team, who is liable when insurance claims arises? I don't know if UP, you want to clarify the question with the Tshwane team?
Yes, thank you. So what we found was when we introduced enhanced services that sits those that want to participate, like filling potholes, the big question obviously came up, and that is who's going to be liable for if a SIT fixes a pothole and the pothole isn't fixed properly, and then a car drives into it, then who's going to be liable for that insurance claim? So through our agreement with fixing potholes or any other SIT service, there is certain tick box that need to be or actions that need to be taken to make sure that at the end the service that is delivered actually meets the city's standard, so that when we sign it off, although we don't do it, then any liability will come to the city. I was just curious in terms of, because I like the what you're doing, and I would really like some copies of your documentation. But in terms of liability, that will also be the first question that I'll be asking this side.
I'm just gonna open up for the Tshwane team. Anyone want to respond to that question?
Chair, it's Bernard here. We have our divisional head in the meeting, but firstly, yes, that's definitely something that we considered whilst compiling our policy framework. Just quickly, the approval that the city manager signs off as part of our council resolution, he's been mandated to sign those agreements. So it consists of a MOA. It's a 2-pager that have certain conditions. It's got an Annex A, that's the site plan where this precinct is. It's got the operational plan, as Ludi indicated. That's the heart and the gist of what can be done and who's the official that needs to be approached. And then we have a document, Annex C, terms and conditions. And that speaks to then what UP is now asking, is that we have then the terms and conditions in that covers and safeguards the community, but as well as the city. So one, as is happening in Cape Town, the operational plan binds the region and the community. So an official must be approached when a pothole, grass is cut, trees are trimmed, and then they ensure that it's done to our standards and the requirements of a city. And when we have that sign off, then you know that the work is done at a certain standard, but with regard to the insurance, then and that is also then the CUPS decides then the amount of activities and work they take up. The insurance falls back on the community, on the CUP. We're in discussions with the city's insurer to see if we can then, that they, like in Cape Town, it's already happening, that they take over that, but those are, CUPS is a new thing in our city as well. So we're in discussions with the securer to support the city, that I'd like to give over to my divisional head that can add to this.
No, thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I think, colleagues, we can find many ways and place many obstacles for communities to participate. And we've been through this. And the kind of work that the CUP applications that were submitted, for example, let me give you an example. Elderain, next to Elderain suburb, there is a massive primary substation, and next to that there's the industrial area of Sunderland Reach, those that know the city. That primary substation services both the industrial area as well as the community of Elderain. The Industrial Association, the Sunderland Reach Industrial Association, decided to apply for CUP to clear 20 meters of vegetation around the area, to install camera systems, monitors, alarm systems in the substation for the benefit of both themselves and the residential community next that gets supply from that area. Now, you'll have all kinds of NERSA requirements and a whole lot of range of things. We cut through all that. And we say, put it, implement it, the electricity department takes responsibility for it. Nothing has happened in the past 8 months to that primary substation. That's why I'm saying, let us not straitjacket an approach to cities. Cities has their own specificities. They need to design their own interventions. They need to make sure that it works for communities. It is the concept that the late Minister Gordon introduced when he was, for a short while, Minister of Kokta, back to basics. That's what we're doing here, is back to basics. So we can find all kinds of things to stop communities assisting government. And we've been very good at that. So we must start thinking differently now. And for us, the Community Upliftment Precinct Policy Program, for example, the governor of the Reserve Bank had a breakfast meeting with our mayor and the city manager. And arising out of that meeting, he is now calling us to a meeting where he wants to be involved to set up a cup to the precinct of the Reserve Bank. How can the Reserve Bank contribute? Not a CID or IMSD, a cup. Because it's not onerous. It allows people within the precinct to be creative enough to assist government. So I'm saying we can have all this insurance niceties and all of that, and we will never be able to bring people on board if we start placing obstacles. We must think creatively and differently. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Nava. I will just open up for questions before closing the meeting. Anyone want to ask a few questions before we close the session? Mr. James?
Yeah, I just want to pick up on a point that Sibongile from Treasury, Sibongile Mazibuko from Treasury mentioned, and that you also picked up on, is that, you know, a lot of work has already been done between SAPOA, the sort of precinct management fraternity, and Treasury under the Neighborhood Development Program. There was an initiative to start looking at both the kind of policy frameworks, policy and legislation frameworks, as well as the knowledge management and professionalization. And quite a lot of progress was made under an initiative called SAPME, and COCTA was involved, and SALGA, together with Treasury, through the Neighborhood Development Program. And that got stalled for a number of reasons. So I think we're in a different situation where there is more of a collective sort of process happening, which I think we should be capitalizing on, you know, namely the SAPOA working group and the other sort of collaborations that are going on, and sort of start engaging with Treasury again, because there are, you know, SAPOA has a MOU with Treasury where, you know, the whole urban management is one of the sort of key areas to work closer on. So, you know, I do think it is opportune that we start picking up those conversations in a structured in a structured way with Treasury. Yeah. Thank you.
That hopefully, I mean, Lorisang, we should definitely set up a session with the SAPOA team and Treasury just to come together and come up with solutions. As well, I want to invite Andrew Bahrain to this session, because obviously they are working closely with the government white paper submission that is due, I'd say, next year. So we just need to make sure all these comments are considered, and those who would like to be part of that working group session, please do let me know, and I will share the invitation with you as well. Any more questions before we close? Okay. Andile from Ekurhuleni, definitely, hopefully you learned, so you got some perspectives from this session, because our associates at Ekurhuleni are in the process of trying to establish their SRA bylaw. So hopefully them attending this session offered them some valuable insights. With that, definitely thank you all for attending. This was just one, you know, different type of best practice session that we're just prototyping at the GPMA. And I think it really worked well just to have everyone in one room to discuss these hot topics. So hopefully we can set one more session up towards the end of the year, just to kind of see what's happened with our engagements with Treasury and the various teams over there. Hopefully we can get your SAPME back kicking. and other enabling platforms back kicking as well. With that being said, the next meeting, the next Urban Practice Forum would be, I just want to confirm the dates for all of you, would be on the 5th of August. The 5th of August would be our next session. The agenda will be shared with all of you in due time. Again, thank you all for attending, and we will definitely be in touch with the relevant parties to really push this conversation forward. So if there's no other comments, I will just draw the meeting to an end. Thank you for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day and month. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you, Katlo.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Katlo. Bye.
Thanks, Katle.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.